Hey buddies, welcome to AmassGames. My name is Simon. Today I'm bringing you how to set up, play and review for the game CloudAge by Alexander Pfister and Arno Steinbender. So this is by DLP Games and Nanox Games. It's a medium-heavy Euro game. It's a board game, obviously. And in this instance, we are going to be going up into the clouds as spaceships. We're taking these airships up into space using these little things here. This is a score track, which I'll leave that a shot for the time being. I'll be setting this up for just one player. It's a multiplayer game, 2 to 4 players, but you can play it solo. There are lots of different components, as you can see. You have a double-sided board, but for a 3-player game, you're playing this side. You're going to flip it over if you want to play it as a 4. And you're placing out another of these hexes here. So you have another terrain tile here, that's happens to be 4A. You have other tiles here, which happens to say different numbers on it, 2B and 3B. You can alternate these as you wish, just make sure you do them in numerical order. So I have played both sides. I guess I have noticed it's a bit more restrictive, a bit more trickier to do if you wish to play it on the reverse side. So for now, I'll just set up like this. And this is a game where you do want to get the most victory points. It's a game which, very much like other Alexander Pfister games, it has lots of elements from his prior games. So there's a campaign mode, which I won't be really talking about at all. You're going to put various tiles into a baggie like this, and when you've used them and going past that campaign, you're moving into the red bag and such like. There are various different cards. Again, if you want to know more about that campaign, chuck the comments out there, let me know. I've also individually baggied up everything, so each character is ready to go. It doesn't come, I think, with the amount of baggies for this. I had to add extra baggies too. And there's various other things which won't be talked about in this game. There's various other components which we can get onto using 5s of various resources, which sometimes occurs, but as a 2-player, it does not. Because there is a fair amount of setup, I will be talking a little bit of the review as I go, so just bear that in mind. And everybody, like I said, is going to take a baggie, so just think anything of one colour, and start shoving some out. So you're going to take your player board. It looks like this, as I said. Depending on which way you're playing it, you are going to flipping it over as well. So that is something to bear in mind. So just have a look and see which side you're dealing with. Player side B, which we will be showing you for the full game. Otherwise, if it's your first game, side A. The only difference is plants, which isn't a big amount of difference, but I just want to bear that in mind. So I'm just going to start chucking stuff out whilst I'm doing that. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and the notification bell. And aside from that, if you're enjoying the comment, hit that like button, share wherever you like. Of course, thumb up in YouTube in particular, but also thumb up if you're watching it, say, boardgamegeek. And yeah, commenting is best in YouTube just because it's a bigger audience. And aside from that, you can subscribe to me over on boardgamegeek as well. So you're taking these small cubes. Each cube basically represents a round. So if you're first time playing, you're playing 7 rounds as opposed to 8. It's not a massive difference. The time to play, it's a game I do prefer, like I said, I'll talk a bit about the review now, as a 2. It's a bit more snappier, very much like Great Western Trail. I prefer it as a 2. Just quicker turns. This is your scoring marker. It's going to go on 0, and as you move, you're just going to place it out here. It's not necessarily innovative, having the jagged lines. It's not terrible. It does work. You don't tend to knock it too much, but it is something to bear in mind. And as and when you get over 50 points, you generally always will, you're going to place that out. And if you get past 100, which I haven't managed, then you're going to need that too. So over here, we have cannons. So you need to make sure they do an ascending number. When you look, you'll see they have little tiny, weeny little dots. So that's got a 3 on it. It's hardly noticeable. That goes there, and then a higher order of value goes over here. These are various upgrades that you can get. You must do them in order, in this case left to right or top to bottom. And when you will score victory points, it's going to be equal to the highest value at the right-hand side. Don't worry about that for the time being, just to let you know. So you're going to take your energy marker and place this on a 2, which for some reason doesn't quite align with what it is, but it's not far off. And again, this very cute looking airship, which you're placing out over here. So as you can see, it's a bit of a table, not a table hog, but it does take up a fair amount of space, so just bear that in mind. So you will need more space with more players because of your airship. I might leave this in shot, but I think it's quite better just doing it like this for the time being. So what else do we have in here? Well, you have various rule books. You have the main rule book, and then you have the scenario 1 rule book. Like I said, for the intro guide, it's showing you how to lay out your board, and that shows the gameplay regardless of actually typical player count, aside from we're not talking about plants. So what else do you need? You need these little cloud sleeves, and there are various ones in here. Just grab out 3. So there's about 8 or 9 in here. Grab out 3, 1, 2, 3. So this is another video I'm doing every single day. I've been doing daily videos for, it's going to be 11 months at this point, or 12 months coming up very soon. and you're having various cards as well. So as you can tell, this is for purple, so this is going to go in your player deck. You're also going to need some project cards. Project cards look like this, and you're also going to have other tiles, other types of cards. Now, if you're a first player, you're going to take this as well, so determine whoever last bought a plant, or who bought a plant the furthest off will go. Little reference card over here. This shows you what different resources are, which we'll talk about in a second. Mission cards, as and when mission cards come up, you are going to be able to try and complete missions. So in this instance, there are various things that can explain it. If you manage to get a cube into these locations, such as Devil's Fork, you'll get 2 victory points. If you get one into Nefaria, you're going to get 5 victory points, etc. So the various different things you can try and score. Movement, if you can get movement up to 3, you're going to get 2 victory points, etc. Now, like I said, I won't talk about the campaign, but basically you're covering over various bits, so you can't always complete all of them. But let's not talk anymore about those mission cards for the time being. Here are some special cards we can talk about. So, you're going to take out a number of these cards. Again, we're just going to call them city cards. But again, there are some vaguer terms you can use. You're going to pick a scenario. So we're going to pick scenario, say 2. So you will chuck out some legacy tiles. I won't for the time being, but you can see various locations where you can be chucking them out. And actually this board happens to be upside down. I didn't mean to do that. Again, via the description, you can support the channel via following over 2,300 posts over on Instagram, supporting via Patreon, and yeah, there are giveaways via the link tree occasionally, and also there's Facebook. So you have these various cards. They have various abilities on them. These will get sleeved, as you'll see in a moment, and you'll see something like this. And then someone's going to take their turn, as I'll explain in a moment, and they're going to say, "Ooh, I want some, I want some of this stuff over here. I want some metal, okay?" And therefore, you're going to try and salvage some metal, and then everyone else is going to pick something else on here. They could pick the solar panel, get some energy. They could pick some water to get some water, or they might want to choose these building tiles, try and get some buildings. Although you reveal it, and actually there's very little buildings, so you're going to get 1 card. You're going to get 1 energy. If you happen to go here, you get 2 metal, and over here you happen to get 3 water. And sometimes have these special abilities. Every card will have 2 of these things. 1 means you get an extra build action, and 1 thing lets you discard a card if you wish from your discard pile. So that's how that works. So you're going to take these cards, you're going to need 24 of them, the rest are going to go away. So just do this quickly. 2, 3, and if you want to, of course, you can skip or rewind anything that I've covered or recovered. Just, yeah, take your time and see what you need to see, and it'll sink in. So we take these cards, you're going to take this card and turn it the other way up, and then place it face into here. And as I said, this way up, you will not be able to tell what is going to score you the most resources. The more resources, the better. There's no reason why you don't want to have a few. If ever you go past 10 energy, well, you're stuck. You can't take any more, but you're stopping somebody else from taking energy. There might be a reason why you might want energy. And as with all resources in a resource management game, there's a reason behind it. So there's your 3 things. You'll also need space to place out where you're actually going to place these out. So we're going to do something like this, and it doesn't really matter where, but let's place that over here. So this is where you're able to take your drones, which we'll talk about in a moment. You have drones, which are going to start over here. So someone else is going to take a drone. This is the first player marker, but just assume it is not, and I'll show you how that works. So you have your cards. These are basically your movement cards. These are your individual movement deck, and I'll tell you how those work. Now, I talked to you about various different things in the game. In terms of the actual thematicness, let's call it, of them, these are, they specifically have certain names, but these are called navigation start cards. The navigation start cards are down here, and yeah, these are called city cards. So we've talked about the scenario, so certain things are going to occur at some moment in time. So let's leave this off to the side. You're also going to need 8 project cards. Project cards are some things you can use to help work towards. So in this instance, you are going to take the cards. In scenario 1, you're going to only use 0 value cards. If you can just about see that down there. So just about pick it up. Let's see if I can zoom in a little bit more. So yeah, you can pick up some 0 value cards. Let's try and zoom in again. Okay, zooming isn't working too well. 0 cards, and then yeah, there are other things. There's 3s in here, various things in this bottom corner. Okay, so what you're going to do is shuffle up this deck of cards, and then you're going to pick 8 of them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Everybody's going to have 8 cards. Now you're going to discard down to 5. So you're now thinking what you can buy. Well, what else do you do in your turn? You're all going to start off with some resources. You're all starting off with 2 water, and you're all starting off with 2 metal. So you're looking through these cards, and right now, obviously, none of these cards you can afford. The minimum cost, I believe, is 3. So we've got some very expensive stuff here. This one is you're paying 10 water and 1 card. You always have to lose a card from your hand anyway, and you're going to move up various tracks. And there's something else that hasn't been placed out, and for some reason it wasn't in my bag, but I'll just grab out or show you an alternative of. And that is the various ways that you can move up this track over here. It's like a test track. And for some reason, yeah, there's another piece that was missing. So let me just grab out someone else's piece and just chuck it out instead. Let's find a colour which is least like the board. So we have a yellow over here. So chuck out the this disc. This disc represents your movement on this track over here. So I know that isn't purple, can't find the purple one presently. So you're now able to move up this track. So this allows you to move up this track. Why is this important? Well, I'll explain in a moment, but let's assume it's now up there. You also can draw some plant tiles, which I'll go back onto, and there's some other things. So you're drawing 2 plant tiles. At the start of the game, everyone's going to have 2 as well. So these are the 2 plant tiles I start off with. You happen to be, it's quite a good example. We've got some growth tiles and some wilting tiles. I'll explain how those work in a bit. So I need to ditch 3 of these cards. Well, it's expensive, it's expensive, it's expensive. Let's just ditch these 3 cards and they go face up out of the game. So I've got 5 cards and now we're ready to begin. So depending on, again, who has been decided to be that start player, you're able to take your first turn. So how does this work? Well, firstly, we check the book. We check to see if one of these signs is visible. If that is, that's active and you can trigger the book effect. If not, you'll move on. So what we're doing next, the very first thing that you're going to be doing is we'll leave these cards just visible for myself. I'm assuming they're my cards and only I can see them. You are going to shuffle up your deck of cards, your movement cards, your navigation cards, drawing 2. You're going to take your lowest value card and place it down first. And as per what's written on here, you can do the following things. You're able to firstly trigger this. So right now you're deciding whether or not you want to spend 1 energy to get 3 water. Let's just say I do. I'll spend 1 energy to get 3 water. Well, why is that good? Well, now I can get more cards. More cards give me more upgrades and stuff like that. It's an upgrading kind of game. That happens, okay? And now we move on to this phase we just talked about, placing out 2 cards. You can now, that smallest value card, you can either gain yourself energy equal to the value or project cards. Let's just take energy for the time being. And now we move on to movement. I have to move 3 spaces or up to 3 spaces. I can go 1, 2, 3. I can go 1, 2, 3. I must land in a city. I can land over here, 1, 2, but as that represents movement, is an additional movement. So it's going to cost me a total of 4. So I'm just going to go 1, 2, 3. This is this city here. You're going to take a marker cube and place it down, showing you that you've just done one of those 8 rounds. So now onto this phase. So there's various phases, various names to these phases. In this instance, there is a certain terminology I can refer to you and tell you exactly what that means. And this is called the movement phase. So the very first phase we talked about is the production phase. Now it's the movement phase, and then we move on to the action phase. So I've got a movement of 3, okay? And now what I can choose to do is fight. To fight, I need to have a combat value of 1 to get 2 water. I don't have to, and to do so I do need to spend energy. So let's say I do. I spend 1 energy to draw 1 card, and it's got to be at least a 1. The distribution of your cards are 0, 1, 1, 1, 2, 2, and a 3. So I might get a 0. I don't. Phew, I get a 2. So it's enough, a bit too much. I get 2 more water. So suddenly my water levels are looking pretty good now. As I mentioned, there are 5 tokens. And here we go. Let's move on to the next bit. So everyone does this at the same time. They do this, they do this, they do this, they do this. We do kind of do this in turn order. But now we're moving on to the following bit, which is you've now placed down your cube. We're now moving on to the action phase. So if I'm the start player, I get to go first. I can do the following. Let's start over here. I can do a build action. What is a build action? Well, there's a few things that you can do to build, and it really depends what you wish to do. For example, I could build this. This is my propeller. It lets me move further. So next round, regardless of this value, I can add an additional 1 because it's got a movement symbol. That's the arrow, and it's going to give me victory points at the end of the game. A grey background is end of the game victory points. A black background is immediate. So right now, that will improve it, spending 2 metal as an example. I could spend 2 metal over here, again, victory point at the end. And this will give me a combat increase. So now I can start beating these without having to spend energy and of course revealing another card, which I may want that card instead for the energy later, using the energy effect in the production phase, or maybe for movement. Okay, so That's what these do. And over here we have plant tiles. So again, you can spend 2 and 1, getting some victory points and into the game, and it lets you place out more plant tiles. I'll come back to that again. As I said, that's the scenario 2 and scenario 3 kind of stuff. So what are we doing next? Well, I found my disc. Apologies. There it is. Okay, so now what we're going to go through is this action phase. We talked about this. I have 2 build actions. I could build 2 things. Well, I can't afford both of them, but there are other things that I could be choosing to do as well. Let's talk about them. Okay, so instead I could choose to do something over here. I could choose to say, right, well, I want to fly over to this location because I might want some more water, because some of my cards are pretty expensive. I've only got 1 card I can afford. I've only got 7 water. I might need to get some more water. So over here, I might want to try and get, let's say, a 10. It does require me to get, obviously, 3 more water, and the maximum value up here is 3. So let's say there's a massive pool of water. Let's just say I go here for water. Everyone else then follows suit. So imagine this was the yellow player, just playing a 2-player, and they go here. Okay, then I take the card. This is where it gets interesting. It's a deck building game as well. You're taking a card, you're looking at it. It's like being in a fruit machine going, oh, what's there? Bingo, fantastic. So firstly, I get the card. It goes to my discard pile, which means the next time this gets shuffled around, I could potentially, at the very least, be getting obviously 4 movement, or of course if I've got 2 4s because it's the lowest value, it could be used to get myself more energy or more project cards. So that goes here. I get myself 3 water, and whoever else, so in this case this player over here, they'd get themselves 1 metal. So I take 3 water. 1 2 3. Now if somebody had picked that 2, as I mentioned, if they happen to have a 0 maybe in their card discard pile, they can discard a card. That's what this X means on the card symbol. And over here, an extra build action. So if you had loads of metal, maybe that obviously that build card was there, that might be better. Something else you can be doing to build is actually choosing to play another card. So build actions around here and playing out a card. So there's a few different things you can do. Okay, so now let's talk about the other things you could be doing. Instead of doing this, getting 2 build action, everyone else gets 1. Instead of going here, which gives you a card and gives you other build actions, well, over here, it lets you immediately take 3 more plant tiles. So they're going to go on your board. They're not going to do anything on your board, but I'll explain them out that in a minute. And over here, of course, you're taking one of these cards instead. So it's a 2, it's a 3. But if you go over here, what you get to do is you get to play out a plant tile. The amount of plant tiles you're placing out is equal to here. So everyone places out 2, upgrade to place out more. So right now, I could chuck this back into the bag and get either 4 water or 4 projectiles. Or I can chuck out this to get 2 victory points straight away, and it's immediately going to cover something on the board. If it covers something, such as 2 metal on here, that's completely covered over now, and you're going to get 2 metal. So 2 metal and 2 victory points. However, of course, people can now move through there, and it's not going to hinder their movement. Of course, there's no hindrance going on over here, but as you can see, it's going to cost you 3 movement to go to this location. So that's how it works. You are going to go through and do the whole thing, and then it's going back to the start player. So I've been the start player, I took my drone out. Now, the next player, turn order, next person, then they get to take the drone out. So now they're going to go somewhere. So this is going to have been taken out, and now a new card is visible underneath. So now they go, oh, actually, maybe I want this because I get to discard a card. So maybe they want to take this card. Maybe they want to do a build action, etc. So each player does the drone action, which does feel a bit weird, the fact that everybody does it, as opposed to just that start player who takes the drone action. Everybody has a chance to lead their drone first. So it allows everybody to get water, metal, whatever you want to do. So again, they could choose to go here to get metal. And as you can already tell, some of the things are visible, so you can't always see, but in this case, you can discard a card as well. So imagine they had that 0, next turn around, they don't have to worry about it. Then that comes back, and that ends the round. Beginning of round 2. You have a look, and again, this first player marker is going to move, and then you're going to do the whole thing again. You're going to look at your energy levels if you want to. You can spend your costs. So right now, I can spend 1 energy to get 3 water. So let's say I do that, spend 1 energy to get 3 water, and then I obviously get more water. I then move on to this phase, check the book. This time the book, let's say, is revealed. In this case, what you can do is draw out a mission card. So now you've got something to work towards throughout the game. I showed you some examples earlier. Over here, what can happen from now on, whenever the book's revealed, so again, there's more book occasions. This time, if you want to, and often we haven't been doing this because we haven't had the stuff at the right moment, spend 4 wars to get 3 victory points and get 3 project cards or 3 energy. So that's how this works. And when you cross certain parts, again, by playing certain cards with a symbol, then what happens is you can get things 2 extra cards, 2 extra water, 3 extra water, and each time you trigger from this moment onwards, when you're this far up the path, you're getting yourself victory points as well. So let's talk about its project cards. Well, let's start with this one. You're paying 10 water, so one of the most expensive cards there is, and you're also discarding one other card. So like, oh, I'll play this card. I really want all these cards, but I'll just lose it. To then, in this instance, it's telling you that cards from now on is 1 water cheaper. So that's what you might want to get this out early, and you're going to get 7 victory points at the end of the game. And let's say you had discarded this card. This case, we can move up this track over here, and you're spending only 4 water and a card. You always spend a card. You're going to get 3 tiles on your board and 7 victory points straight away, and you're moving up that thing, scoring 3 plant growth tiles out. So you're going to pay for 3 new growths and score 7 victory points, one time only. So these are production cards. So I might just move this board up a little bit more to show you now, and try and make this a bit neater. And then, so you can place a card down here, and you could play this one, which is cards cost 1 cheaper, so that's going to go in this section. This case where you have the secret tunnel. If your chosen region contains a wrench, score 2 victory points, more situational. So you could do something like that. There are other cards, more of these. Obviously, you're going to have some of those movement cards. This one came up my first game, seemed to get a few of them. And you get pay 13, move 2 movements up, and spend a card, 10 victory points. Cards like this is something I'm going to talk about, which is where the luck factor. You could draw some cards, and like, oh, I really want it, but I want it later. And I was fishing the deck in my first game, and I came last in a 3-player, and in the rematch with the same players, just trying to get those care packages, and I couldn't get them at the end when I wanted them. So over here we've got the kind of upgradey stuff in blue. So in this case, you can upgrade your, well, when you actually have 5 combat strength, you're able to get 2 water. When you have 8 combat strength, you get 2 victory points. This is called combat video. If you have at least 5 or 8 combat points during combat in the movement phase, take the associated reward. So stuff like this, there is the MP plans. It lets you build your cannons cheaper. So that's over there. We talked about that one already. There are other interesting cards over here, similar to other card. When your movement, when it's your turn to take movement, you can gain 3 water when you have 5 movement. There's also something else on your board whereby you can get an extra free movement with a solar panel or 2 energy. So when it's your turn to move, you're saying, I want an extra movement because 1, 2, 3, 4. Maybe you want to reach this one because you can never place a cube in the same city twice. Or maybe you want the extra energy because you're low on energy. When you fight, say over here, you are going to draw 1 card, spending 1 energy. But if it's not enough, then you, so imagine you're here and you're spending 1 energy. If you wanted to spend another card, it's going to cost you 2. And from then on, it's always 2. So this case is up to 3. So you still wouldn't be enough. 1, 2, and therefore luckily you did it. And luckily this last card was a 0, so that's a good example. Okay, over here, you can get other cards. Spend 5 water, 1 card, to get yourself an extra combat. And these cards stack, of course. 4 victory points at the end of the game. And yes, you can have loads of combat going on in the game. Extra movement can stack as well, as you can imagine. So you could be flying around the map, getting somewhere where everyone else is blocking you off. There's not much blocking though. You can't land on the same space as someone else, but you can fly through their space. So that's something to be aware of, and yeah, a bit more carnage in a 4-player game. So that is the game CloudAge. Like I said, I like the way these cards stack. It's a nice idea. It's just a shame that it's not like the bottom of the card that you're seeing, because especially with a card such as these combat cards, it'd be nice if you just sort of tuck them under and then did like this. And it's quite easy to add it this way. But as it turns out, they obviously, you need to place it the other way around, so it takes up more space on the board. Obviously, there's tech trees going on here. It's nice that the turns are pretty quick. You're just flying around going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I want to go there because I want to get water, or maybe you want to go over here to fight to get victory points. I might even turn this other light off now to see if that kicks in better. Excellent. So all the boards are the same. These propellers are a bit odd because if you turn it around, they don't quite, they feel a bit too small for what they are, which is a bit weird. I don't know why that is. If I just zoom in a bit, yeah, it seems like it's too small. So not sure what's going on there. The cards themselves are a bit bananaed, but they've kind of settled down a bit, as were the boards, but generally it's been fine. Interesting concept, obviously, with this kind of fruit machine, one-armed bandit style of, you know, can you see anything else there? You can kind of do this, but you still can't see much, as you can tell. So obviously upgrading your cards, which upgrades your movement, upgrades your combat. As a 2-player game, it takes about 80 odd minutes. Obviously water's key, because the more water you have, the more cards you can get. The more cards you have, the more upgrades you have, which is very important. Moving up here, of course, allows you to be more flexible, to get victory points and getting more water. So you can get water to buy cards. Aside from that, there are other different things you can do. Get metal to get more constant upgrades, so you're not spending energy. Obviously, getting more more movement means you're not having to use movement here, so you gain more energy as well. So it's very well balanced in that respect. Obviously, thinning your deck and also choosing to get better upgrades is good. Choosing to only go for these when you can see them, or pushing your luck because you can see maybe one or two of them. Again, these clouds are all different, so they do vary as to what you can visit and see. So a huge amount going on here. This is a zoomed out 4K video. I would love to know what your thoughts are on this one. It's I think it's a very good game. Some people who like their heavy Euros say, oh, it's too light for them. You know, I still think it's medium heavy, and my rating is still, it's gone up actually. It was kind of something like maybe 6.8, but it's more like a 7.8, 8-ish something perhaps. It's just a lot of fun when you just go, ooh, I'm going to move out there, and yeah, I'm going to go there and fight and get some cards, or ooh, I'm going to go here and get some water, because you need water to get more cards. Again, the fact that, and I've played some games where I've had 13 plus cards in my hand, you know, you want to play to what you have, and obviously you have your mission cards as well. And you might want to, yeah, move up your tracks. Maybe you want to start fighting more. Maybe you have something that helps you with fighting, or in this instance helps you with movement because you can get extra abilities. So there's lots to discover. And again, there's tons of cards to go through. And there's the whole legacy stuff as well. So very innovative, very Pfister, you might say as well though. And this might be something you want to check out, especially as, I mean, when I've taught the game, I've actually found I can go straight and avoiding that first level, which avoids plants. You don't necessarily have to plant, but if you do want to, of course, it's just a way of just getting some extra resources if you're struggling. And of course, no one else can do the plant action if you do it. They can just get a build card, which basically means, yes, they can take a build action, 1, 2, 3, or playing out a card, or you can draw a card. Aside from that, if you can't go, there are other options as well about taking a card or a resource. So when you do have a double build action, that is possible. That's covered off the majority of the game CloudAge, an interesting concept. And yeah, I do like the way movement works. It's interesting to see it, and I can see kind of some thematic ties going on there. And yeah, lots more photos and posts through on Instagram. Now back to the table.